Good morning from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's 11:11 a.m. Make a wish to your angels. On the 20th of December 2025, Saturday, Shabbat Shalom. So, it's a glorious morning. I actually woke up very early this morning, but I put myself back to sleep because I'd only had a few hours sleep, and that's not good, people of Earth. But I sort of snoozed intermittently till about 9ish, and then I hauled my assets out of bed. So I've only been up for a couple of hours, but it's just lovely. First thing I did, and I hit the ground running, was I put the birdie boys outside because they didn't get to go outside yesterday, and so they're very happy, preening and flicking little tiny feathers everywhere. And the scrub turkey BB's been also greeted me first thing this morning. I put seed in his bowl, so he ate, and now he's off doing whatever scrub turkeys do, probably staying out of the heat. And what else? There's lovely cool breezes today, which is just delightful. So it's really quite a beautiful day. The Mama T can't complain, can she? Not that I really complain all that much. Sometimes I get myself into some dark trauma spaces, but usually I'm not really a complainer. It's like every day above ground is a magic waiting to unfurl and co-create with the gods, and you never know what you're gonna get out of life. Gotta make the best of it. And I thought I would continue on with reading Amanda Scott's Boadicea, Dreaming the Serpent Spear. Just realised that kind of rhymes. Boadicea, Serpent Spear. All very sweet. Right, people of Earth, let us begin. Chapter 5. It was raining, and the mule was stuck. The beast was young and had never been in a pack train before. Broken to harness at the end of autumn, it had spent the winter in the store paddocks at Camulodunum, knee-deep in mud and snow, and fed on musty hay, with no exercise to keep it fit. The recruits who drove it were every bit as raw and as green as they too were on their first campaign. They had no real experience of how to load the packs, and the mule was lame on one hind leg and had open sores along its back where a pad had been badly placed. Oh, the poor creature. To Titus Aelius Ursus, a decurion of the 2nd Troop, the 5th Gaulish Cavalry Wing, assigned to care of the men and their mules for the entirety of their month-long journey west to join the governor's campaign against Mona. All of these things were regrettable but inevitable. None of them explained why the beast had planted its feet on the first planks of the bridge and had refused to move. Hit the bloody thing! What are you waiting for? Ursus shouted it from half a cohort away, urging his horse past the muttering mass of men spreading out along the riverbank. They were glad of the rest and had broken formation, dropping their packs without orders. The indiscipline of it was terrifying. They were young and had been recruited straight from the back streets of Rome which was a relatively safe place to live, and had trained in the east of Britannia, which was almost as safe, and had no notion of what it was to march through land held by unconquered tribes, where the bones of legionary dead lay thick as pebbles among the heather. A battle-served centurion stood on the far side of the river, marshalling the 40 men who had already crossed. Tardily, he put his hand to his mouth and called back to the rest of his century. "Get back in formation. I will personally flog any man who steps out of line." Men shuffled and cursed and picked up their packs and were no more ready to meet the enemy than they had been before. Ursus was tired and saddle sore and thick-headed from lack of wine. He had ridden for 13 days in the wind and pissing rain, with poor food and his bedding rolls damp through the night, and not able to drink into warmth, and forgetting because his bastard of a prefect had forbidden them to touch the wine supplies from the moment they rode out of the winter quarters. He wanted either to be in battle or out of it, safe in Camulodunum or committed to the Western Wars, not babysitting a cohort of helpless, hopeless children, half of whom would be dead by the month's end. I think he'd be a bit kinder knowing that he's sending them to their deaths. Human beings fucking suck, don't they? They really do. They really, truly do. Oh, little Bo, all your millet seeds just got blown into your bath water. But you're not going to bath in it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I just keep putting it out there just in case, you know. Eternal optimist. Yes, Mr. Crow's here, I know. He's all very excited about the crow being here. He's allowed to be here. He comes to the garden regularly. It's his sacred space too. Oh, Kookaburra's here as well. He's going to stir up Cookie now. Yep. I don't know what's going on with those two. They've been fighting for days. Yeah, he's stirring them up. Cookie's sitting there with his beak open, watching, looking up. They must have some kind of a strange friendship, because it's almost like they're sparring or bantering, but it's almost like not terribly serious, more like play. Who would have thought that a kookaburra and a crow could be? Are they really friends? They seem to spend a lot of time teasing each other, so I guess they are friends. Cookie, is that your friend? He says, it's beneath my dignity to be friends with the crow, Mama T. The crow thinks he's my friend. Yeah, he's stirring him up, flying around his head, and Cookie just looks up ready to defend himself. Oh, they're very strange, those two, but they're always together lately. I wonder what that's an augury of. Interesting symbolism come to my mind. The Australian kingfisher bird and the crow. I don't think crows are actually native to Australia. I'm not sure. I might have to research that. I think they originally came from Europe, but I'm not sure. They might be natives too. Well, anyway, the black, shiny, almost blue crow and the white, tan and blue cookie having their little Australian standoffs. Being eaten or feasted on by ants, which is annoying. Get off me, ants. I'm going to continue on with our wonderful story. I know. Bad Mama T. He reached the bridge and let fly at the nearest of them. If you don't get that bloody beast moving, I'll have you carrying its pack for the rest of the journey west. The pink-faced boy, who should have been across the bridge and halfway into the valley beyond, raised the rod in his hand, and the mule flinched and set its ears back and brayed as it had been doing for far too long. And Ursus finally came close enough to see the welts on its back and haunches, where it had been hit often and hard, and so to recognise that hitting it more was not going to make any difference. Cursing, he threw himself from his horse. Leave it. There's no point. A junior officer stood close by, old enough at least to be shaving. To him, Ursus said, "Has it done this before?" "Never. We've never had any trouble. It's the bridge, it doesn't like it." Ursus rolled his eyes and sighed pointedly. Obviously, they never do. Nobody with any sense steps onto a strip of swaying planks stretched over a 20-foot drop with rocks and running water below, and mules have their own weight and common sense. That's why you're here too. He stopped. Sweat pricked sharply along his neck. A horse was coming along the river bank at speed from the left. He knew the sound of it as he knew the sound of his own heartbeat. Without turning, Ursus said stonily, "Stand to attention, that's the prefect. How he knows we've stopped is beyond me, but you can pray now to whoever you like that his mood has improved since last night." Behind him, the incoming horse drew to a halt, almost within reach. A quiet voice observed, "You've stopped." Quintus Valerius Corvus. Corvus is Latin for crow. Synchronicity, people of Earth. Prefect of the 5th Gaulish Cavalry, could cut a man's soul with the knife of his voice if he chose to do so. And he chose it now. Quietly, with balanced precision, the words were at once a question and an accusation and an assessment of worth, or its lack. Faintly, there was disappointment, which was hardest to bear. "It's the mule. It won't..." Ursus abandoned the sentence, unwilling to state the obvious. That he was in enemy territory with a full cohort of untested legionaries, and he had allowed a new broken mule to halt the progress of his unit. He felt the prickle of sweat running to a scalding flush and hated himself and everyone who saw it, including, particularly, the prefect. "Yes, I saw." Corvus had dismounted and was examining the mule. The God-forsaken beast had stopped braying as if it were indecorous to holler in the prefect's presence. It stood mutely, watching with everyone else as the company's most senior officer knelt in the oozing mud at the edge of the bridge, and, laying his cheek flat, peered along the planks, then under them. Corvus sat on his heels, ignoring the filth on his knees, nodding to something unseen in the damp air, and then turned to Ursus. Find a man with a head for heights and have him look underneath the bridge about a third of the way along. Keep him well roped. I don't want to lose anyone now. And get the rest of your men into armed formation. This place is an ambush waiting to happen, sir. When he tried, Ursus could make things happen fast. When his own men, the cavalrymen of the 2nd Troop, with whom he shared the shepherding of the legionary recruits, understood that his honour was at stake, they gave him their hearts and were glad of it. It was this that had won him promotion to decurion and might keep him from that post now. Flavius was there, the troop's standard bearer, with 2 other junior officers. They had heard the prefect's order and knew how to bring their men most swiftly to battle formation. At Ursus's nod, each gave orders quietly and crisply. Booted feet rocked the morning. The loose rabble of polished iron and helmet bronze that had been their cohort became a shining line, not one man out of place. Abruptly the rain stopped, and it was possible to believe that the gods approved of what had been done. The men certainly thought so. In the stillness of the lines, small handfuls of cornmeal were scattered as offerings to Jupiter, Mars, Mithras, and the more minor gods of hearth and home. Murmured sacraments hung like smoke in the air. The danger of ambush became noticeably less. The 3 officers conferred, and soon a dark-skinned lad of 17, with curled Hispanic hair and tendons that stood out on his forearms like pulleys, had tied a rope round his waist and then pulled himself along under the bridge and back again. Standing to attention in front of Ursus and Corvus. Ursus actually means bear as well. Ursa minor, bear. The bear and the crow. Here we have the kookaburra and the crow still fighting, talking to each other, and the cockatiel and the Indian ringneck living their best lives. Standing to attention in front of Ursus and Corvus, he was white and not from the height or the officer's presence. Someone's cut the bindings. The hide holding the planks has frayed almost to nothing. The ones who got across were lucky. If the mule had gone over, it would have fallen to its death and taken anyone else on the bridge with it. Corvus had seen it. Ursus should have done. The only grace was that it had been obvious from the moment the prefect spoke, and Ursus had already thought through what to do. I have engineers, he said. We can abandon this bridge and build a new one. It will take less than half a day. I know, thank you. Sadly, we don't have half a day. The governor needs us with all speed for his assault on Mona. and we have no remit to repair bridges that have been sabotaged by the enemy. Corvus was a compact man, slim and fine-skinned, with no spare flesh or hanging jowls, and only a salting of white at his temples and along the parting of his hair to show that he had aged since the first years of the occupation. There was an air of difference about him, so that even now, under the mud and the stains of travel, with his officer's cloak hanging wet about his armour and his greaves polished to blind the sun, he did not look fully Roman. His nose was more Greek, or perhaps Alexandrian. Alexandria came from Macedonia, which is next door to Greece. Well, I think it's part of Greece now, but I think they used to be separate countries, Macedonia and Greece. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong though, people are. I don't know everything. Sometimes I knew things and I forgot, or I've muddled them up over the years. But yes, I'm pretty positive that Alexandria was Macedonian. He wasn't Greek. And his eyes were wider and could hold the world. For nearly 2 decades, Ursus had felt himself drown in them daily, and daily had levered himself out again, cursing. Must have had extremely beautiful eyes when it makes a man feel that way. Imagine the effect he has on women. Ursus was broad and tall, and his hair was a very un-Roman pale brown, a legacy from a maternal great-grandfather who had been Batavian and had earned his citizenship fighting under the deified Caesar. He had survived a brief revolt by the Iceni on the east soon after the invasion, and 20 years of savage resistance by the tribes of the west, and was as good a field commander as any man of his rank. He could take anything the enemy warriors chose to throw at him. 'Twas his prefect's opinion that made or broke his days. "What then?" he asked too shortly. Corvus smiled and raised a brow. "The next bridge is 4 miles downstream. It's intact. My troop and their legionaries are crossing now. Bring your men down and follow us. Keep to the rear. The snake will need teeth in its tail." 'Twas an offering of a sort. Corvus led all his own patrols in person, but he put his second most competent officer at the rear, so that the snake of his line, if cut, might yet strike fast and hard at any enemy coming from behind. It was a place of implicit trust, and assumed the good initiative of the officer placed there, who might well have to act alone. The lorikeets are here, I think. It sounds like lorikeets. I can't see them. They're there. I can hear them. Yeah, it's lorikeets. Even though I can't see them, I can tell by their vocalisations. Well, they'll be wanting their snacky poos soon. They haven't asked for food for about a week. Haven't been to feed. Oh well, we'll see how we go. Once Valerius had been there. It was Valerius who had destroyed whatever little of the prefect's good humour had survived the winter and Camulodunum. Ursus hated him for both of these, but not enough to reject the gift that was offered. Thank you. He bowed as if in the governor's presence. Ahead of him, a horse shifted restlessly. When he raised his head again, Corvus had already gone. Why did he do it? The shame of the mule was a passing shadow, almost forgotten in the routines of a nighttime camp. Ursus lay on his back and asked the question of the tent roof above his head. Rain fell steadily so that the words slipped into the drumming of the goat hide and were lost. To his left, Flavius's standard bearer shifted a little, making his camp bed creak. He laughed sourly. Who? Corvus? Because you'd have lost 2 days building a bridge fit for the emperor himself, and the governor would have flogged you afterwards for bringing his much-needed reserves late to war. From the dark, an older, wise voice said, he's not asking about that. He's asking about what happened a half-month back that has left his favourite prefect in a foul temper. He's asking about Valerius and the procurator, about why we lost half a day on private business that will see us all crucified if the governor ever gets to hear of it. He's asking why Corvus stopped the emperor's tax collector from collecting the emperor's taxes. Actually, if any one of us is honest, he's asking, why did he commit treason? Sabinius, the third of the party, was nearly 2 decades older than his tent mates. He had been with Corvus from the first days of the 5th Gauls and was nearing retirement. His hair was greyer than the prefect's, and his face more lined, but he carried less care. As standard bearer to the first troop, he was the most senior officer of the wing under Corvus. He could have slept in a tent of his own with slaves to light the fires and keep his bedding rolls dry. That he preferred the company of his own on campaign created a patina of respect among the men that drew from them the extra effort required in war. What do they say en français? Égalité, fraternité, liberté. Actually, it's the other way around. Liberté, égalité, fraternité. Freedom, equality, brotherhood. Must have been handed down from Roman times, that attitude, people of earth. Or maybe they're just universally core values across all times and cultures. Anyone with half a brain knows that. Mama T's still got at least half a brain, by the gods. All right. Sabinius too lay on his back with his fingers laced behind his head and his face turned to the rain-sodden hide of the roof. "You're asking the wrong question," he said mildly. "It's not why did he do it that's obvious. What matters is why did we let him? And why did we not? And are we not going to report him to the governor?" Ooh, 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 ooh. Oh my goodness. Huh. Crow had a toad in its beak, but he was still flying, chasing the kookaburra even with something in his beak. There was another crow that followed them. Oh well, if they're eating the toads, that makes me happy because I don't like killing them. I asked the fairy in this land to resolve that situation for me quite some years ago because I said I don't want to kill them. I don't like them. I think they're ugly creatures and they are a pest and need to be culled, but I don't want to be that person. So now the crows take care of business for me. Which is awful for the toads because either way it's still getting killed just by some other creature. The circle of life, people of Earth. It's amazing how it works out for you sometimes. Bizarro. I wonder where they found that toad because it would have been, they were seemingly up in the tree. Toads don't climb high up in trees. Maybe it was sitting in the guttering of Tim South's shed because they were just above that. Bizarro. They usually only come out at night, cane toads. Well, one less to, contribute to the destruction of our ecosystem, I guess. Right. There was quiet and some thinking. "Are we not?" asked Flavius thoughtfully. "There's still time. It might save our lives." Ursus said, "We're not." He'd be given his sword and an eye's blink to fall on it, and if he paused long enough to commend his spirit to the gods, they'd crucify him in front of the camp as a traitor and a coward. With surprising feeling, Flavius said, "Good." Ursus snorted. "Are you so tired of life? Corvus is the man who will keep us alive through this misbegotten war against sorcerers and warriors who fight with no fear of death. If he dies, who else is going to get us back east with our skins in one piece? In any case, it wasn't the wrong question. I still want to know, why did he do it?" "For Valerius, you fool. Why does he ever do anything?" The other two heard Flavius turn over and rock the pan of hot stones lying in the centre of the tent that drove away the damp for the first part of the night. Temporarily, the air became warmer and smelled of steam. From the wet dark, Flavius said harshly, "You were both in the Iceni steading. You saw him as well as I did. Valerius was there, alive, with his bloody killer of a horse, and Corvus couldn't reach him. Would he have wanted to? Ursus was newer than either of the others. His gut was not yet attuned to the thoughts and senses of his prefect as theirs were. Flavius snorted. Of course. Why do you think he hates so much coming west when the whole winter has been bent towards it? The light of his days begins and ends with Valerius, and he thought the man was on Mona, or at least on Hibernia, with the rest of the God-drenched dreamers. I like that. God-drenched dreamers. Mama T, the psychedelic dreamer, might be a bit God-drenched too, although sometimes I'm a little bit in denial about that, you understand. It's a Jewish thing. We're a stiff-necked people. Always think we have control over our own destiny. And then we get pushed and poked and prodded by God, and it can be a bit astonishing sometimes. A bit astonishing, people are there. Well, better to have a mind opened by wonder than just mere belief alone. There's nothing like seeing and believing and knowing and understanding, or rather inner standing, being at peace with all that is, was and ever shall be, and coming home to yourself again and again and again, unfurling your own personal magic, surrounded by people who truly do love, value and cherish and respect you. That's important. That's an important part of the ingredients to a full and vibrant and happy and successful life. Having good people in your life that have your back, your front and your sides. Who don't gaslight or lie to you or deceive, who aren't vicious, lackluster, low entity, bloodless, cowardly curs. Dear Goddess. Crow just had a drink out of his little pond, but I think that water might be hot right now. It's been in the sun. Might be too hot, my love. It's not going to be a refreshing swim. He's drinking it though. Oh, darling. I've got cold water out here for you. Over by the ferns is cold water. It's probably not cold anymore either. Have you finished stalking the kookaburra and giving him a hard time? Hmm? He's having a swim. He's in now. Mama too should take herself swimming too, somewhere nice. Right. Now he knows he's in the east and may die with Corvus, not there to help, or to hinder, or even to speak to him at the end and heal the damage between them first. The hot pan rattled a second time, less harshly. Sabinius, older and wiser, said, "Don't listen to Flavius. He's bitter because he's been 15 years with Corvus, and the man has never yet invited him into his inner tent, as I suspected. And he's jealous of you and the newness and innocence of your love." Ursus blinked in the dark. He's having a really good swim now. Good boy. It's refreshing, isn't it, my lovely one? It's very lovely. Ursus blinked in the dark. He had not thought his love so widely known. "But is it true?" he asked. "Of course. Everyone knows that Corvus did what he did for Valerius, and he would do it again tomorrow, were the cost twice as great. Both of you can smile at your beloved prefect until your jaws crack and your eyes leak down your face, and it won't make any difference. His heart was long since given to a wild boy of the natives who rode a horse called Death and had the courage to face down the madman Caligula." The bunk creaked and the voice was directed more at one man than the other. "Are you happier knowing that than you were before?" The quiet stretched longer this time. Eventually, that mask is wreaking havoc on my skin. Never mind. Eventually, Ursus said, "He loved the governor's son once, Scapula's eldest. That was after Valerius. I heard about it. That wasn't love. That was anger and politics and an eye to the future. In any case, Scapula's son is dead, knifed on Nero's orders for being too beautiful and too brave and too decorated in battle, which should be a warning to us all. You can be beautiful and brave, or brave and decorated, but the gods won't help you if you are all three." So all we have to do is stay alive and stay ugly, and we're fine. The second is easy. The first will only happen if we get some rest. The dreamers and warriors across the straits on Mona will not give quarter just because you are love-sore and too tired to fight properly. Go to sleep. The world will be the same in the morning. A long time later, when the breathing of the others had settled to sleep, Flavius lay on his back, staring up at the sag of the tent roof and the rain. "It still isn't too late to tell the governor," he said, into the dark. Right, we finished chapter 5. And we're 44 minutes in. I usually read for an hour and a half, but let's see how long this chapter is. It's only a few pages. I guess we'll carry on. But it felt like felt like a longer chapter, that one. Maybe it's just a flow state. Let me think. Shall we continue or shall we quit while we're ahead? I did 2 chapters yesterday, didn't I? Well, we're out here and it's pleasant in the garden. Chapter 6. I don't care if you have to sink the foundations past the floor of the ocean and ship every God-forsaken stone one at a time from Iberia, which is the ancient name for Spain. I will build the baths here and they will not slide into the sea at the first kiss of a winter storm. Do I make myself clear? It was shortly after noon, and the sky above the fortress of the 9th Legion was as grey as if it were dusk. The easterly wind knifing in from the sea was sharp with salt, and it scoured equally the faces of Petilius Cerialis, legate of the Legio IX Hispana. The blue-lipped, shivering Iberian master mason who stood up to his ankles in seepage in the trench at his feet. Ugh. And the 5 legionaries who stood behind, armed and ready to defend their general against everything except weather, leaking foundations, and the intransigence, or stubborn common sense, of the province's only master stone mason. To Cerialis's left, the winter fortress of the first 3 cohorts of the 9th Legion, strategically placed at the northern end of the ancient trading route known to the local tribes as the Ancestors' Way, took command of what height existed in the flat lands north of the Wash, spreading up and over the low crest of the hill. Thus advantaged, the watchtowers were given an easy view of the sea and, regrettably, an equally easy exposure to whatever storms the gods might choose to visit upon the shores. There were no storms on the day Cerialis elected to order the beginning of the baths for his men, only the knife wind and the beginnings of trade on the drove road below, and of work in the salt pans to the north, and a fishing boat newly set into harbour, mobbed by a havoc of screaming gulls. The wind clearly carried the sound of the birds' hunger. They drowned out the master mason's answer entirely. By those watching, the man could be seen to open and close his mouth. He quite clearly shook his head. He spread his palms and raised his brows and began soundlessly to explain the details of engineering and bathhouse foundations to the legate, and then abandoned all effort, not for the gulls or the wind or the growing frustration on Cerialis's face, but for the hammer of hooves on the stone of the drove road that became, even as he lowered his palms and turned south with the others to look, the stumble of cavalry horses driven past all endurance on rising turf, and then the shatter of chainmail such as a man might make who has ridden himself beyond exhaustion, and whose legs will not hold him upright when he dismounts, so that he falls to his face at the feet of his legate. Or, not his legate, the prostrate man. It's Isn't it funny how prostate and prostrate sound almost the same? Just one letter R inserted in the middle. I guess if you've got a fucked up prostate, the best you can do is lay prostrate people there. I shouldn't joke. It's a terribly painful way to be for a man. And I've struggled with similar issues, with bladder issues all my, not all my life, but since the 2000s at least. Anyway, it is what it is. Moving house too many times, carrying heavy furniture alone, and childbearing and birthing, and takes its toll on some women's bodies. Guess I wasn't strong in my nether regions. It is what it is. There's actually forecast in my horoscope, in my professionally done horoscope, when I was 11, that I would have problems with that region of my body. It's amazing how they can know that just by looking at the planets and stars. Very amazing. Anyway, it's all good now, but yes, it was a bit of a mean joke, but kind of an observation how the two words are very, very similar. Prostate, prostrate. The prostrate man was not of the 9th Legion. The mason, climbing out of his waterlogged trench, recognised the goat-headed fish of the 20th on the bridle and saddlecloth of the spent horse that stood with heaving flanks ahead of him. Then, late, he recognised the encircled elephant that was the personal imprint of the Governor of Britannia on the satchel that lay now on the rank grass of the hillside, its seal cracked open by the force of the messenger's fall. The gulls were quieter now. A new boat had set out to sea, and they followed it, spreading their noise elsewhere. The messenger's companion, a russet-haired cavalryman, dismounted more neatly into relative silence and stood behind his fallen comrade. Petilius Cerialis, legate of the 9th Legion, drew in a breath of brine-laden air and, directing his voice downward, said, "If you are not dead, perhaps you would care to stand and deliver your message?" Valerius lay with his face pressed to the wet grass and realised that he was genuinely winded, so that rising was, for the moment, impossible. Through the tunnel of black that had sucked at his diaphragm, he heard Longinus say, in thoughtful Thracian, "You've ruined that horse." He had not intended to bring Longinus. Very specifically, he had given the former cavalryman tasks that would keep him at the steading, watching over the routes from Camulodunum by which a desperate cohort of veterans might march. The Thracian's name was not the first that had come to mind, therefore, when he heard the horse openly following him on the track north to the 9th Legion. Pulling the messenger's strawberry roan off the track, he had waited, and continued to wait, while a riderless horse galloped past him. Then, understanding, had said aloud, "Longinus Stapizzi, it's less than 6 months since you were half dead with a broken skull, and that was my fault. I am oath sworn to keep you from further harm. You are not coming with me to the fortress of the 9th. I would like you to explain how you can stop me, Longinus had said from behind his left shoulder. And you told your sister there was no risk. If they don't remember one decurion of the Thracian cavalry, I don't see why they should remember his successor any better. A little desperately, Valerius had said, they think you're dead. The veterans of the 20th held collections for your memorial stone. That kind of word passes. Then we'll raise a wine jug to the incompetence of scribes throughout the empire. Sounds familiar. 2020 comes to mind. And celebrate the fact that I am very much alive. I haven't been indicted for treason. If you're safe, I'm in no greater danger. And so saying, Longinus had pushed out through the spring undergrowth. So many traitors, so little time, people of earth. Vermin they are, absolute fucking vermin. He whistled, and the horse, which had stopped, came back to him, mounted again. He had grinned and then stopped and said, do your gods see danger in this for you? No, not as long as I hold courage. Do I lessen that courage? Never. Good. Longinus's smile had been real for a moment, shorn of the dangerous hilarity with which he faced danger. And then we have a time to be together before the real fighting starts. I too have things to prove to your sister's war host before they will believe I have joined their cause. He had swung his horse and his mood had lightened. In any case, these horses are too good to waste. If I left you with that roan, you'd give it to the barbarian Batavians and they'd ruin its tendons in a month of bad riding. You need me there to keep it safe for you so you have something decent to ride back down on. It had been better riding north with company, particularly this company. Not for the first time lying prone on the grass at the legate's feet, it came to Valerius that, alone of his sister's close circle, he had no honour guard that might surround him in battle, nor did he want one, but that this one solid, unwavering friendship and the steady humour it offered was a gift to be treasured. It was a pity about the horse. He could breathe again, which was good. He counted a few heartbeats longer, then pressed his palms to the turf and levered himself to standing. He swayed a little, and it was not all for show. His hand had a welt across the knuckles as if a sword cut gone awry. His face too was bruised, as if he had fallen from his horse onto rough ground, or been hit a glancing blow by a club. Sigfa had done that, not unkindly, but perhaps with more enthusiasm than might have been necessary. None of these was remarked upon by the legate, and Valerius did not mention them, but retrieved from the wet grass the message pouch that bore the governor's broken seal and was about to open it and read aloud the message when he noticed the mason for the first time and the slowly leaking foundations beside which he stood. Beset by a new idea, Valerius knelt and dug his fingers into the turf, testing the quality of the earth between his fingertips. Rising, he said, "This ground will never hold a baths. There's too much sand to support the foundations. There may be chalk under some of the other hills here or clay on the higher ground inland. The mason might find it useful to know that." The legate gazed at him flatly. "You've been here before?" "No, but I was present when the baths were built in Camulodunum in the year after, just after the invasion. The land is similar in some respects." "I see. Then you have been in the province as long as any man living, while I have been here a bare 10 months. How clumsy of me not to appreciate that. And now you are a messenger? What were you before this? A centurion?" "Almost." Valerius allowed himself to smile. "A decurion. I have only ever ridden for the cavalry. I served in the 5th Gauls under the prefect Quintus Valerius Corvus." "Indeed, I have heard of him. He has a reputation for extraordinary valour." There was a rim of yellow around the whites of the legate's eyes, as if his liver had rebelled for many years against the sharpness of his intellect. Polite way of saying he was an alcoholic, I believe. But not everyone has liver problems from alcoholism. Some of us got damaged by the Hep B vaccine and, to be fair, years of indulging in fried foods. Oh, all together now. Oh. I'm livid about the damage from the Hep B vaccine though. I knew when I had the 3rd shot, the booster, something had changed forever in my body, and just recently found out they were putting mRNA in that too. The evil, dirty bastards. It's why my whole body screamed no when they brought out the COVID vaccines. I just knew. Too quick, too soon, too pressurised, too coerced, too much brainwashing. Football tickets and donuts come to mind. Oh, and lotteries. Don't forget the lotteries, people of Earth. Anything to get that into our bloodstream, into our veins, into our very DNA. Are you still a pristine birdie, little Kermie? No, Mummy, you kiss me and you've been shedding all over me. You too, Bo. Bo says, "We hate you, you bitch." It's not deliberate, boys. I wonder if it's transmissible to pet birds as well as our cats and dogs. Explains a lot though, doesn't it, if it is? Never mind, Day by day we're surviving, enjoying sunshine and happiness in the garden. Yes, little boy? What do you say? He says, you're reading a story to the people of Earth, Mama T. Keep reading, Mama T. I was enjoying the inflections of your voice. All right, little boy. You should be singing Mama a song, though. He sang this morning very early. Lovely song he sang. Yes. He's a beautiful boy. Right, where were we? Yes. The liver rebelling against the sharpness of his intellect. Tapping his forefinger to his teeth, he said, you stoop low for one who has risen so high. Are there not others of lesser rank who could bear a message from one commanding officer to another in a province at peace? Valerius retrieved his message satchel from the ground. His fingers traced the outline of the beast that had been the symbol of Britannia's governor since Claudius first rode his elephant in through the opened gates of Camulodunum. When he looked up, even the legate was shocked by the haggard weariness in his eyes. None that are alive, he said. 5 other messengers were sent ahead of me. None have got through, unless you know already that the Iceni lands are ablaze with the beginnings of insurrection. The Iberian mason knew himself out of his depth. He bit back an oath and cursed inwardly the ill luck that had brought him away from the safety and warm winds of Rome to a land where the natives still resisted civilization and the generals in their army still believed there was glory to be won in war. Dickheads. It was no secret that Petilius Cerialis, legate of the 9th, craved battle and was sick to the back teeth of guarding a trade harbour and a drove road and the salt pans of eastern Britannia against a group of pacified client tribes who ventured no more than the occasional sheep stealing from their neighbours. Cerialis's gaze, resting on Valerius, became curiously fixed. And yet you are alive, he said slowly, which is in itself an achievement. The wind blew straight from the sea, cold and damp and laden with salted mist. I have to move in a bit more into the shade by all the gods. On the drove road, a wagoner paused to speak to the fisherman and then clucked his horses forwards. That's better. Heading south. The legate watched the wagon begin to roll, then said, my armourer buys iron from that man. Perhaps it would be of benefit to tell him that the Iceni are no longer at peace. He turned to the russet-haired cavalryman. You are? Longinus Stapizzi, Decurion, the 1st Thracian cavalry? Cerialis nodded curtly. Good. You will ride down and tell the iron trader not to leave until we can give him an escort. When you are done, see to your horses and then make yourself ready to ride. We set out today to restore the Emperor's justice in the lands of the East. Longinus turned his horse back down towards the trade route. He leaned forward to smooth a hand over the lathered neck, and in the lifting tone a man might use to encourage one more effort from his mount, said in Thracian, "There is a man riding up towards us now on a flashy bay cavalry horse with too much silver on its bridle." Excuse me. "He seems to know you. If you're in trouble, shout. I'll hear it." Longinus had never been afraid of combat. He turned to salute Valerius. His yellow hawk's eyes held all the light of battle and only a little of warning. Grinning, he set his horse down towards the trackway before Valerius had time to reply. I don't intend to die. I swear it." Valerius had said it to Briaca truthfully. In his analysis of the possible dangers, he had not included the Batavian cavalrymen who were stationed with the 9th Legion, for the simple reason that he did not think any would still be alive who might recognize him. It was over 20 years since he had trained with the native tribes on the banks of the Rhine and the Batavians. Of all those who fought for Rome, and the Batavians, of all those who fought for Rome, threw themselves hardest into the most dangerous conflicts, vying with each other to perform the most outstanding acts of bravery and self-sacrifice, and so win a place posthumously for preference in their winter sagas. To die of old age was anathema to a Batavian, and the overwhelming majority avoided it with a good 2 decades to spare. Riding north into country policed by a wing he had once known was the kind of easy risk against which Longinus would have offered long odds, and Valerius would have accepted with a light heart and the certainty of winning. He would have lost. Julius Civilis, by order of the Emperor Caligula, citizen of the Roman Empire, had survived every battle and was enduring the curse of old age with commendable dignity. Buffeted by a wind that had no care for rank or honour, he rode straight-backed up the hill towards his legate and the new visitor, and it was impossible not to recognise him, however much the sun had leached the colour from his hair and the wind chiselled cracks on his skin. Valerius was not as exhausted as he had made out, but nor was he as battle-fresh as he would have liked. He stood by his swaying horse and watched the slow approach of the man who had once named him soul son and brother. It was a moment's work to assess the sources of danger and put them in order. Longinus was his first concern. The Thracian was nearly at the bottom of the slope and had hailed the iron trader. He was thus beyond reach of the men on the hill, and his horse had enough fire left to carry him into the forest and the safety of the trees if the need arose. Of those who might have posed a danger to Valerius, and so indirectly to his sister's cause, the legionaries who formed the legate's guard were young and bored and more concerned by the blustering wind and the unexpected prospect of a long march down the ancestors' stone way, with battle at the end of it, than they were by any possibility of attack from the messenger who had just ridden in. They stood hunched against the wind, their bare forearms blue with cold and their noses dripping freely. Thank you, Spirit. That's an interesting perspective. I don't know why you're telling me these things while I'm reading the stories. I won't remember later on anyway. But anyway, interesting what they just said to me. May or may not be true. That's why I don't usually acknowledge them when they overlay over the top of my thought processes and reading. Right. It's true, they're yelling petulantly. Okay, well that's fine. How does that help me one way or the other? It's of no consequence. Let it go, let it go. It's amazing how things come to me though. Quite amazing. Right, here we go. The mason posed no danger at all, which only left the legate. Cerialis was close enough to kill, and he had made of himself a gift. His sword was clipped into his sheath, so that he might mount his horse smoothly without the risk of dropping it, and his mind, unlike those of his legionaries, was reaching forward to the glories of combat and the planning required to bring it about. I guess you're curious and you want to know what it was I was responding to. Let me put it delicately. They were showing me flashbacks of my mother taking me, or I actually drove her and took her there, to a jewellery wholesaler called Transglobal. It's run by a very kind woman who's a devout, very devout Christian woman. And they showed me this brief, in the middle of the story reading to you, flashback of me going with my mother and looking at, my mother was buying wholesale jewellery to sell at the markets. And my mother, they showed me, and this actually used to happen on a regular basis, mind you, they showed my mother insulting me and denigrating me, putting me down, making me look stupid in front of this very kind woman who said nothing because, it's her business and one doesn't involve oneself in mother and daughter narcissistic cold wars or hot wars as the case may be. They showed me the face of that woman that day, my mother giving me a dressing down, being really vicious and snide and awful, and me taking it because, why did I take it actually? I didn't always take it from her, but I guess I was embarrassed because we were shopping in her wholesale jewellery shop, Anyway, my mother went into another part of the shop and I just stood there with my head bowed, feeling utterly humiliated but also utterly furious. I was doing a kind thing for my mother, driving her there so she could buy the things she needed for her little jewellery business. At the time I had my own business to run and little children to look after, so it was a lot actually to take time out to take my mother there, only to be utterly disrespected and insulted by her. So this was all shown to me in just brief flashbacks, just came flowing to me. And then they reminded about a certain person that also thought it was okay to denigrate and insult me in front of others and in public. And they said, as your mother descended, so shall he. It's a sign actually of dementia, impending Alzheimer's, when you're that vicious that you choose to humiliate and destroy the people who love you. That's why I said, thank you, Spirit, but how does that help me one way or the other? But just being gifted that knowledge, I guess, grants me a measure of comfort and peace, knowing, yes, it's a sign of a unravelling mind when someone is vicious for no fucking reason, but they can be. That's how it began with my mother all those years ago, years before she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, by the way. I was still married to my husband, so we're talking, we bought the business in 1990. So somewhere in that time period between 1990 and 1995, when I was helping my mother, who did not help me in any way, form or manner, but took credit for everything. It's complete narcissism and, quite frankly, sociopathology as well. And, you know, I was a good daughter to that creature that inhabited my mother. In the end, it really wasn't human. Quite inhuman it became. Seeding of your soul starts in very small increments, but in her case it was manifested via her brain literally turning to mush. I watched it happen. There were long periods of estrangement to keep myself and my children safe too. And then I came back into her life when she was deposited unceremoniously in the aged care facility because her stepdaughters were greedy and evil, perverted people who just wanted the house and the money. So I was there for that demonic fucking imp that really I used to try and extricate my mother's true spirit out, show her pictures of her youth and try and bring the memories to the fore with music. Spirit says, forgive them. It's dementia when they do that. The beginnings of dementia. It's not going to be an easy road for them. Have compassion and mercy, Tanya. I had compassion for my mother, and how did that benefit me ultimately? Caused me only more and more abuse and pain. So no, I'm choosing to walk away from any entities, human or non-human, who are willfully sadistic and cruel. Not my monkeys, not my circus, people of Earth. I don't have to wallow in their shit of their own making. And I know that seems a bit hard-assed and a bit self-preservationist, but I've already done that dance decades ago and I'm done. I'm done living in that consciousness. It is what it is. People who are willfully cruel are not my friends or my family. Right. It's just strange how these things come to me, you know, when I'm in the zone of reading it. I find that really quite astonishing. And I don't wish dementia on anyone, so I actually hope that that's not completely true, people of Earth. It's an ugly, horrific, debilitating disease. Someone said to me, I think it was Peter, he said, it's actually a good way to die, he said, because you've got no idea what's happening to you. No, it's not a good way to die. It's one of the worst ways to die there is. Losing your heartfelt love connections to people. Losing your sweetness and your kindness. Losing your peace. Losing your cognition and your connection to the outer world. And ultimately losing your own self. It's not a good way to die. Might be a better way of dying than being threatened with stabbings or shootings in Bondi or other ignominies visited upon our world. But it's not a good way either. Mama T has spoken. You talking, little Kermie? Who are you talking to? You talking to Mama? Are you a happy boy? He's on the swing looking at me. Are you a happy little birdie boy? Bo's a happy birdie boy. I love you. Yes, I do. You're my sweet little baby boy. Yes, you are. Yes. This is why I fight to enjoy every scrap of every day while I still have mental cognition, people of Earth. Because I spent 15 years out of my mind on very heavy psych meds. When I got my mind back, I decided this might be the last hurrah of the Tanya. I hope not. I hope I keep my full cognition right till my very end, but it's a wonderful thing when you can see clearly and think clearly and have critical thinking and no sanguinosis, as Thomas Sheridan calls it. Watch everything play out and choose which components of it you are going to participate in and which you are not. Free will, people of Earth. Right, I don't know why I'm coughing all of a sudden. It's odd, isn't it? It was fine before. Mention my mother, I immediately start hacking up half a fucking lung. Right, here we go, people of Earth. We'll carry on. But yes, when people start randomly for no reason that makes any coherent, logical sense, have a change in personality and become, vicious and nasty and unpleasant on a regular basis, it's a forerunner of an alteration to brain function, just to put that a little bit more delicately. Pay attention to those who are turning savage. And depending on the nature of the relationship, choose who it is you keep in your inner circle sanctorum, people of Earth. Or I should say inner sanctum sanctorum, but you know what I mean, in your closest circle. If you don't have people around you who actually are kind and honouring and respectful and have your back, your front and your sides, then you're better off to fight through this life alone. It's very fraught and very dangerous and precarious, but it's the only possible outcome of all of that. I won't keep people in my life who are dishonouring and disrespectful. Life's too short. I've been through too many hells. Right. Bo, you're so quiet sitting there. You're a good boy, aren't you? Yes, Mummy's good boy. Right, where were we? The Mason posed... Did I read that? I'll read it again. The Mason posed no danger at all, which only left the legate. Cerialis was close enough to kill, and he had made of himself a gift. His sword was clipped into his sheath so that he might mount his horse smoothly without the risk of dropping it, and his mind, unlike those of his legionaries, was reaching forward to the glories of combat and the planning required to bring it about. Which was left of the legate's attention was all for Civilis. His features had softened, as if the approaching rider were a distant grandfather still remembered fondly from childhood. Almost forgotten, Valerius tested the spring of the turf beneath his feet. The salt on the wind tasted sharper than before, and the scudding clouds seemed more richly textured. The irony of that was not lost on him. The world always became most beautiful when death was closest. That is true, people of Earth. You certainly see the world in a different way when you're facing down your own death. For so much of his life, the Boadicea's younger brother had wanted to die. As the Batavians did, he had thrown himself into the hearts of uncounted battles and had killed and mourned the fact that he emerged alive. Only recently had he discovered how badly he wanted to live, and only in the short time since his return to the Iceni had he come to understand how much he was needed, and that he had an obligation to live that went far beyond his own needs and wants. Been there, got the t-shirt, people of Earth. It's a bit of a bastard when you're honour bound to stay in this life, knowing what you know about it and the people that came and apparently still keep coming. False, cruel and sadistic people. Makes it hard to stay tethered to this life. But I had a lovely day, I had a few lovely days this week. The day I spent out with Jared, and the afternoon spent with my friend Regina, and the afternoon spent with Robin yesterday. So love is the law, love under will. Love is the fabric of the multiverses. For every awful individual that tried to destroy me, and the beautiful, sweet love that was carved from me by envious, spiteful entities. Love has flown back through every window and every door, in many different manifestations. Sweet friends, my birdie boys, even Mr. Crow who's eating the seeds I put out for the turkey. They can share in it, there's plenty there. Life is beautiful, people, even though I did not always want to remain here. Time has healed many wounds and ironed out many wrinkles into the space-time continuum and shown me true hearts and minds. That too is an immense gift to keep me safe in these distorted, contorted, evil times. What you doing, Mr. Crow? There's water there, it'll be hot. Came up to look at me. Go and have another swim. Go on. Go cool your heels and have another little swim, my boy. It's good for you. Might soak my feet in it a bit too later on when we finish the story. The man who wishes most to live must abandon all fear of death. This is true. He had learned that long ago, in the days when Civilis's hair had been the colour of washed gold, and the sun had blessed his face with freckles, not lines. The old cavalryman was close now, and the weight of his age showed more clearly, and the effort he was making to hide it. His hair was no longer flowing gold, but ice white. Against all Roman law, it was bound up at the right temple in a warrior's knot, with the many teeth of his enemies plated in silver and left to dangle to his chin. His hands were cramped and rested on the pommel of his saddle. Cold and 65 winters spent on horseback had cracked and swollen the joints, so that holding the reins clearly pained him, and it was the hours of training that had gone into his horse that enabled him to ride it so safely, not the strength of his grip. The passing years had changed Civilis almost beyond recognition. There was the hope always that Valerius, too, might have altered. Briaca had once failed to recognize him, leaving room to believe that others might do the same. Remembering late the role he had assigned himself and the lie within it, Valerius opened the messenger's satchel he held in his hand. Addressing the legate a little louder than was necessary, he said, "The message from Camulodunum is written here in full. Would you have me read it?" Later, Petilius Cerialis flicked a dismissing hand and gestured towards the advancing cavalryman. With uncharacteristic delicacy, he said, "Julius Servilius has retired from service to the Emperor, but he is still our best horseman and retains the respect and war oaths of his tribesmen. If he advises herbs or a hot mash for your mounts, do not refuse them. Valerius bowed. His name is known throughout the legions, and your care for him honours you both. I would not dream of refusing him. He turned and saluted the oncoming rider. The beginnings of battle fever burned like old blood on his tongue. A welcome friend. His body prickled to the promise of violence in a way it had not done when Briaca had killed the messenger. A lifetime of war had taught him that danger was better faced head on. True to that training, he stepped forward saying, "Julius Civilis, prefect of the Batavians, greetings. Your name is known from one coast to the other as the officer who led his men to swim the great river and destroyed the Iceni horses in their lines." The horse, picking its way with such delicate care up the tussocked slope, stopped at the sound of the river's name. Civilis, once prefect of the 1st Batavian Cavalry, tilted his face towards the man who had spoken to him. A chaos of memories swept his face. Tears sprang fresh to his eyes. There are not many who still choose to remember that. Were you there at the first battles? Civilis's voice wavered. His gaze focused only briefly on Valerius, and then wandered uncertainly to the legate. There was no hint of recognition. Offering a prayer to the gods of poor memory, Valerius said, "Not as closely as you were. I fought with the Quinta Gallorum, but not all those of us were in the front lines." That much was true. Valerius stood very still, waiting. The Civilis of old would have known that a certain member of the 5th Gaulish Cavalry had not only fought in its foremost ranks, but had swum the river into the blazing core of battle with Civilis's Batavians. A heartbeat passed, and a second. At the foot of the hill, Longinus had reached the iron trader and talked the man into turning his wagon round. The legate had stepped away, but was still close enough for Valerius's blade to reach. Civilis stood 2 paces away. He was neither armed nor armoured. His life could be measured in parts of a breath. The Quinta Gallorum, that was Corvus's wing. I served under him before they gave me my own command. The old man's head lifted a little, as an old hound might at a distant hunt. He frowned and the crags of his face deepened. "Then I should know you. There are too few of us left who fought in that battle to forget each other." Rheumy eyes searched Valerius's face and slid away, finding more of interest in his horse. "What's your name, boy?" "Tiberius. I was named for the man who was emperor when I was born." The deceit was slick and hateful. The gods did not honour the makers of lies. No, they do not. Latanya is well aware of that. Ah, yes. The old man's larynx bobbed in his throat. I remember now. You served under Rufus on the Rhine, a good man before the natives cut his throat. They carved their witch signs too on his chest and cut off his... Civilis abandoned all attempt to remain in the present. His gaze drifted over all the men to a past horizon none of them could see. The waxen contours of his face melted. Spit gathered creamily in the corners of his mouth. It seemed possible he might weep there before them all. The legate stepped forward to hold the horse's bridle before the old man let fall the reins and the beast became unruly. He said, "Old friend, war is upon us. The Legion must march south to Camulodunum to stem the rot of revolt. Your Batavians will accompany us as honoured escort. This messenger and his companion will ride as our guides. If your horse boys could take care of their mounts, it would speed our progress." Their horses? Civilis's gaze became noticeably sharper. He studied Valerius's strawberry roan and then looked down the hill to the place where Longinus was escorting the iron trader back towards the fortress. "Oh yes," he nodded thoughtfully. "I expect we could take care of their horses." And thus concludes chapter 6. And I'll be back tomorrow, no doubt, with chapter 7 of Boadicea. Have a beautiful day. It was very cloudy here when I started reading. All the clouds have all drifted off into the southwest. Interesting. All around me in every other direction it's now cloudless. So have a beautiful day, people of Earth. Be with the ones who love you truly and honouringly, courteously, respectfully. Live your very best lives. Make every day beautiful, not just because it's the Hanukkah and impending Christmas season, but just because we're alive, and make every breath count for something, people of Earth. Never ever let the bastards grind you down. Bye for now.